tired of feeling stuck or checked out? Maybe difficult feelings or situations have been piling up like dirty dishes in the sink, yet you find yourself mindlessly scrolling or turning to other distractions in order to avoid what's right in front of you. If you're wanting to learn to show up in your life for yourself and for others, you're not alone. And, if you're looking for a way that feels honest and empowering, then stick around because there might just be some nuggets of wisdom in today's session that can really kickstart that process. So, welcome everyone. My name is Ambika, and I'm one of your hosts here at Ashram Talks. I'm joined today by educator and bhakti yogi Chandramukhi, who will be taking us through today's wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita and, just how we might be able to apply that to our everyday lives. Welcome, Chandramukhi.
Hi there, welcome. So nice to be here again, and welcome everybody who's come on today, if they're here now or later. I'm looking forward to this topic today.
Yeah, it's an exciting topic. I'm looking forward to it as well. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Okay, excellent. So today I'll be discussing freedom through action as opposed to escape. And it's very easy to want to escape from things that are difficult in our life. And actually, often that's our first reaction. We can escape in so many ways. We can escape through, as Ambika was saying, scrolling with our phones or just tuning out and feeling like in some ways we can even feel frozen because what we're facing might be just too much, or we get overwhelmed in so many different ways, and it's very easy to escape. And so in this class we'll be talking about how we can proceed through action, so attending to our life and the people in our life, but with a freedom as the end result, not not entanglement, not further overwhelm, but actually rising above and being free from those that mood of trying to escape. So before I start, I'll first offer my obeisances, my heart, onto the lotus feet of my beloved divine master, Om Vishnupad Shishima Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namane. And onto the lotus feet of my grandfather Guru, Nitilila Pravista Om Vishnupad Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has compiled all these Bhagavad Gita translations and purports so beautifully for us in this day and age. So Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachari Shatarine. And then I'm offering my obeisances and prayers unto all of our divine teachers in this line coming from Shri Krishna, God himself. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai. So we'll get straight into the topic today. So first of all, we will look at the verses, and then we'll go into the details of what they're teaching us, what Krishna is teaching us through Arjuna. So we've got 2 verses today, and we've just entered chapter 3. And chapter 3 is going in detail in karma yoga. Now, we have touched on karma yoga in previous classes. And this actually, the chapter 2 that we've just completed is actually a summary of the whole Gita. And now we're going into each section, each part of the topics that Krishna has covered in great detail. So this chapter is known as Karma Yoga, and we're only just started the chapter, so we're up to verse 4. So we're going to be doing verse 4 and 5. So I'll read the verse to start with. And these are directly Krishna's words. These Sanskrit words are so powerful that they're actually the words of God, and they can actually purify the heart and cleanse the heart of things that are stopping us from attaining real joy. So by actually saying the Sanskrit in these verses, and if you're at home and you're doing this live or later, you can actually say them along with me. And the verse itself it contains so much wisdom. It's God Himself speaking, and each verse contains like some beautiful pockets of wisdom. And when we say the verses, they can illuminate our heart and help us realize the truth that's within them. So, na karmanam anaramban naishkamyam purushosnute nacha sanya sanareva siddhim samadhi gacchati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. And then we'll look at the second verse as well, because they're very similar and they go together well. Verse 5, chapter 3. Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishtatya karma krit karyate hi avasha karma sarva prakriti jai gunai. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So we're going to go into the different sections of this verse and see how they relate to our life as well. And actually, we're all on a search for happiness. We're all on a we actually, in the Vedas, the Vedic literatures describe that in our heart we all have a treasure. It's like an inner treasure within our heart. And that inner treasure is the source of all happiness and joy. And when we take the path towards that of real happiness, then the divine love and happiness actually can arise within our heart. So, and this is an eternal factor and not a flickering happiness that comes from momentary experiences of sense enjoyment, but a deep inner satisfaction and inner realization of who we are as spiritual beings. So I'm going to start with a story today. And the story is an ancient story that has many teachings in an analogy form. So there was once a poor boy who was very much he didn't have hardly anything, and he wasn't too unhappy, but he felt that he felt the poverty around him, and as he grew up, he lived in a very, very simple way. And one time, a great sage came along, and he said to him, actually, I knew your father. Why are you living like a poor person? Your father was very rich, and I actually know him really well. He actually left a treasure in your house. So if you dig under your house, you'll find that treasure. And then he said, don't dig in the south, because if you dig in the south, only the wasps and drones will be there to bite you. Don't dig in the west, because if you dig in the west, there's a ghost there that will haunt you. Don't dig in the north of your house, because there is a black snake that will bite you. You should dig in the east. And if you dig in the east, there you'll find your treasure and all of your problems will be solved. So the boy did that, and he didn't go through the other direction. He just went straight to the east of the house, dug there, and he found his father's wealth buried there. So this story signifies several different things. So who is our father? Our father is the super soul of the universe, the soul of the universe, who is inside and outside everything. And actually, he is the father and mother of all living beings. And so actually, our father, our source, our divine friend who is with us within our heart always, he has actually left a treasure, and that treasure is within our heart. And we're living like poor persons, meaning like we're living without our eternal treasure of love and happiness, of pure love and happiness that is endless, that never stops, that is not flickering and temporary and changing and going around and around in circles. And we get overwhelmed with that, with our lives overwhelming us, and we becoming disturbed and cut off and wanting to escape these things, actually there is a great treasure there. And how will you find it? Then he says, well, don't dig in the south, because you'll find the wasps and drones. Now that represents the path of fruitive action. So basically, it's the path that most of us are on, is when we're trying to work towards material goals of ultimately enjoying through our body and senses and our false identity. And we then get the results of those. So if we act in a pious way, then we will receive so much so-called good in our life, in material enjoyment and good facilities, comfortable life, and so forth. But then this is talking about lifetimes. We're breaking it down very simply, but it's actually very complex, all the actions and reactions that happen. And then if we act in a way that gives pain to others, then the reaction comes back to us of, sinful react. So it's like acting in what is known as sin, or it's not something to be. The word sin has many connotations in the West, but like it's basically doing things that are hurtful or harmful, exploitative to others. And so everything we do comes back to us. There's the famous scientist Isaac Newton, who said every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And that's just in the law of physics and how everything moves in this world. So it goes through lifetimes. And so it's likened to the path of it's likened to wasps and drones biting you, because ultimately whatever we do in this world has a reaction, and ultimately there is so much suffering and pain that comes to us it's mixed amongst the happiness that's the different temporary happinesses we experience. And so then then we can start to think, oh, well, if I whatever I do, there's going to be a reaction, right? So then we think, oh well, let's just stop action, let's just stop acting. And then another form of that is like escape. I'm going to close off from what's going on around me. It's too much to handle. um, the big bills, or the emotional experiences my child's having, or there's so many different varieties, but we can easily just close off and want to escape, and and it's kind of like a form of renunciation, like renouncing activities. Like, I'm not going to really be there present. I'm just, or it can be taking to a path that actually completely does that. And there's many different paths that one can take, like as a monk or a renunciate, as a person who just gives up their family life or doesn't enter into family life and tries to stop activities, just wants to meditate and think of nothing, or trying to stop activity. So the Lord Shri Krishna is saying in this verse that not merely by abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So those reactions that are coming from us, we can think, oh, let's just withdraw and stop activity. But it's actually impossible. That's why he says in the next verse that everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he's acquired from the modes of nature. So everyone has to act. And even just the act of breathing, we don't realize, but when we're breathing in, there's hundreds and thousands of micro living entities that are coming in, and they're actually dying as we're breathing. So we're creating reaction in that kind of mode just by breathing, just by cooking, that we're even if we're having a vegetarian diet, which is minimalizing the violence on other living beings, we're still cooking and killing a vegetable. That vegetable has consciousness, and inside that consciousness is a soul. So this world is like sometimes the analogy is given like a tar baby. Like if a little doll is covered in tar, and you try to grab one part of it, you'll just get stuck, and then you try to get yourself off, and then you'd grab something else, another part of it, to get yourself off, and then you'll get stuck, like your hands are getting stuck. So action in this world is like that, is very, very entangling. And and we're all forced to act. There's no way we can stop action. And even if we withdraw to the forest or to a nice peaceful atmosphere, and we don't want to engage in the world anymore, like we just have our family around us, and we don't want to, like, we don't even work, or we just like make sure that there's no disturbances around us to disturb our mind. Still, we have to act, and we're creating reactions and actions and so forth. And so some people take that path of renunciation to the extent that they give up the world. And that is so we're talking about the different directions that the boy was told to dig. And so that comes into the west direction, which is in the Vedas known as the path of Gyan, or it's also known as the path of renunciation, of analytically understanding the difference between spirit and matter, and that material life will only cause you disturbance ultimately, and then coming to this point of trying to find peace and happiness by renouncing the world. But then it says there in that analogy, that in that story, that there will be a ghost that will haunt you. So you will just become disturbed, because actually it's not your nature. Your nature is to act in the world. And Krishna is teaching this very, very expert, artful science of how we can act in the world, be present, not in an escaping mood, and find fulfillment. And so it's very beautiful and hopeful, and it's a reality. It's not just an imaginary thing. These teachings are very, very practical, and when we apply them, we can find that real treasure in our heart. So going to the next part, he also says, well, don't dig in the north. So then there's this path represents the path of mystic yoga, and there's many different things that can come under that path. And we when we develop yoga can actually be practiced in traditional times. These days it's practiced very much for health reasons and exercise and so forth, but ultimately yoga in previous times, people would actually develop mystic powers to be able to control others' minds, to be able to become very small or big, like kind of like magic powers, but they're mystic powers. They're actually in this subtle body where you can actually have these power over others, or there's 8 mystic cities. I can't remember. You can look them up. 8 mystic perfections that come through that path. But then there's many other paths where you can gain certain, I guess you could say, powers, like especially like if you get into healing, you get into the psychic realm where you think you can predict this and that. But ultimately, unless you're in the functioning on the realm of who you really are as a spirit soul, part and parcel of God, everything else will be it will be on the level of the subtle body or the gross body and our false identification, and it'll be mixed. There may be some truth there may be not. And if we don't have the right mood of service to others and service to God, then we can very easily use those kinds of powers to exploit others. And it's still it's kind of still in the path of karma and the path of renunciation, because you're exploiting others. You're trying to, everything is for you ultimately. And it's selfishly motivated. And it's also kind of a way of trying to like override the karma that you have in this world to get away from reactions. But ultimately, you're very caught still in this world until you come to the path of real freedom, which is what Krishna is speaking about here, is the path of devotion and love, the yoga of devotion and love, which is bhakti yoga. And that's why he says, dig in the east and there you'll find your treasure. And the east represents the path of bhakti yoga, and is also called buddhi yoga, which means that yoga of the highest intelligence. Yoga actually, as we've heard in many classes, yoga means union with divinity. So it's actually about forming a relationship with the divinity, with God, with the personality of Godhead, who is a very loving, beautiful person. And through bhakti, which is the path of devotion and love, but it all is about action. And so this is when we can learn to artfully live our life, so that we are acting. And we've spoken that many of us have spoken about these things in other classes, but we're acting with our life as an offering to the soul of the universe. And when we act in the consciousness of divinity within and without, then we become free from the reactions and actions. We don't try to escape either in our mind or physically, but we become so situated in our real self that we see everything through the eyes of love and through the eyes of reality as opposed to the illusion. And so, as Krishna says in this second verse, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he's acquired from the modes of nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So the nature actually of the soul, our real eternal identity, is to always be active. And without the presence of the soul, this body is kind of like it's dead. That's what it's like. We're carrying around a vehicle, and it's this vehicle of the body is being worked by the spirit soul, accompanied by the super soul, accompanied by the soul of the universe, who's right next to us in our heart. I'll just add here that in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll come across it sometime soon, but it describes that the super soul, who is known as Paramatma. So Atma is the soul, Param means the supreme soul. And it describes that he actually is within every single living being's heart. The ants, the bugs, the spiders, the snakes, the trees, the cows, the monkeys, everything, all kinds of human beings. He accompanies every little living entity, big or small, within our heart. And it's described that in our heart, he is described as big as your thumb. So you can have a look at your thumb, and we have a little God in our heart, who's Krishna, who's inside and outside everything. He is within our heart, but actually he's there that size, but actually he's so much bigger than that. He can be smallest of the smallest, biggest of the biggest. And he is our very near and dear friend, always watching and guiding us. When will they turn to me? When will they stop trying to find their happiness in these false realms of this material existence? And there we have how this world is designed. This world is designed so that when we don't look in the right direction, we'll ultimately not find happiness. And it's designed that way. And that's Krishna, God's design, that we will only find happiness in who we truly are. And so, we can ask, well, why is there suffering in this world? Why is there's so much poverty, or why is there, there's so many people in difficult situations while others have all kinds of material facilities and they're seemingly happy? But ultimately, it's all designed that there's going to be a mix in this world, and there is a lot of suffering, and that suffering is there, that pain is there for every living entity to have a very powerful lesson from their dearest friend, God, their dearest friend, Sri Krishna. And that powerful lesson is that we don't belong here. We belong in a loving relationship with him. And our happiness is not in material things. It is not in striving for everything to do with I, me, and mine, but it is in the action, the nature of the soul, which is service to God. And then and that automatically means service to everyone, because everyone is part of God. But when we serve the center, then automatically, as we're the part meant to serve the whole, automatically we're in our normal happy condition. And the Lord is so kind and merciful. We need to learn to trust in the Lord. I was actually walking down the street the other day, and somebody had put up a poster, a Christian with a beautiful quote from the Bible, and and I took a photo of it because I thought it was so nice. And it says it's from Proverbs 3, and it must be chapter 3, or I'm not sure, 3.5 to 6. Anyway, so trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all ways, in your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So when we acknowledge our dear friend in our heart, right there with us, we will get guidance from within and how to act and how to be, and use our life as an offering. And in the Bhagavad Gita and later verses, he describes how we can act so that we are free from, and actually acting in service to God and acting in trying to offer our life and actions, our body, mind, the actions of our body, mind, and words to Him, trying to remember Him in all activities, think of Him, and pray for His guidance before we do anything. There's no, and Krishna actually says in the Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when someone does that, there is no loss for him. There is no evil for that person. That person attains freedom from suffering, freedom from reactions to their activities, and is always joyful. And so he says in the Bhagavad Gita later on, he says, and this is in the last chapter, which we'll get to after many, many other verses, but he says, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. And it's interesting because when we think about the world of action and how everything is so complicated with a reaction, there's nothing you can do in this world to, apart from this path of the soul journey, to be free of reactions. And it's so complex. But then we can also think, how merciful is the Lord? How kind is the Lord? That as soon as we turn towards Him, everything, all our reactions start finishing. And it can be even described as like when you have a fan that's going around and around. Right now it's very hot in Australia. It's probably different to America, where we're in the middle, just coming into summer, and we're turning the fan on. So when you unplug the fan still goes for some time. It doesn't stop straight away, right? So when we start to turn towards the Lord in our life and we engage in meditation on Him, and especially through His transcendental holy names as a daily medicine and diet, and trying to imbibe this path of bhakti yoga and union with God through love and devotion, and trying to endeavor to make our life an offering, then the cycle of birth and death that is going around and around like the fan, action reaction, it's the plug starts to get pulled on it, and just like the fan, it keeps going around for a little while, but then eventually it's stopped. And so this is the path of freedom through action, the action of offering our life to God, which actually ultimately stops our cycle of birth and death and enables us to enter that journey of the soul, the eternal life of the soul, in loving relationship with God. So I finished there today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandramukhi, for that very inspiring class. And it got me thinking about something in particular that I've been reflecting on quite a bit lately, which is, we talked a little bit at the beginning about, feeling overwhelmed when things start to pile up and, wanting to just kind of avoid things. But like, and listening to this analogy as well of, the different directions and why not to dig in these places. And it just got me thinking about how I think sometimes what can happen is, challenges come, and, the first thing could be the thought of, okay, well, I can do this by my own strength, by my own actions. I can overcome this. Or, I'll rely on my mind, on, the gyan part, the I can logic my way out of this. Or, so many other things that we might revert to. But you mentioned this beautiful proverb that, a Christian proverb, the lean on me, trust in me. And what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita as well, of, just turn to me, just lean on me, waiting for us to turn to him in our hearts. And just at the end, how you mentioned that this world is really designed so that, we can kind of realize, I guess, and assimilate that on an internal, in an internal way, that we really can't do this being life, I guess, on our own, and we won't find satisfaction in anything that veers us away from who we truly are. So those are just some reflections that were coming to me from these beautiful words that you shared. So thank you so much. And I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add to that mini summary, I guess, that I gave there. But
Thank you. That was a really nice summary, and it actually made me think of when a fish being out of water, and the natural thing for a fish is to be in the water. That's its normal condition, and we're actually out of the water, being in this world, and jumping back in the water is jumping into those activities and those things that bring us into who we truly are. And it's actually so simple when we understand it. And when we understand it, we can do it more instead of like getting drawn here and drawn there. And yes, let's just do this. Let's dedicate our life to the truth.
We tend to overcomplicate things, I think.
Yeah, it's actually quite simple, but we need to hear it a lot because we're very covered over and forget.
Yeah, well, thank you again so much, Chandramukhi, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. If you're interested in joining our next class, we will be here on Thursday morning at 7:30 at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on where you are in the world, if you have any questions, either from this class or past classes, you can always write them into the YouTube comments, and we'll address them in future classes. Or you can also connect with us on Instagram. Our Instagram is Ashram Talks ENG, so you can connect with us there and ask questions, and our speakers are happy to discuss those in future classes as well. So thank you everyone so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Ashram Talks.